No, everybody got kicked off.
Okay. All right.
So I guess now we know.
That's fine. Well, it's now 10:30. Do we have everybody on? I can't tell. Is Commissioner Glover on? And Suzanne, I'm guessing that what happened is they disconnected the phone. There's something not hearing us. Okay, Trish, is there anybody in that room that can hear us?
We can hear you.
Okay. So Gene, you're on. I can't see. Okay, I got you. Then we'll call the meeting to the regular Board of County Commissioners meeting to order for June 24th at 10:30 a.m. Gene, you're in the room. We can't see you, but would you mind leading the prayer and the pledge?
Okay. Heavenly Father, thank you for this day. Thank you for this time to come together and to create some solutions for the county. Lord, we just ask to be with us during this meeting and our presence here, and pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, roll call of the board.
Commissioner Knopf,
Present.
Commissioner Glover, Commissioner Buffalo.
Present.
All right. Adoption of the agenda. Are there any additions, deletions, or corrections to the agenda?
I do have one addition. It's a Board of Health contract that came in this morning, and these are needing to be renewed by the 30th. So I was hoping to get this entered in. It's a CDPHE contract, Amendment 2 for Communities That Care.
And we just received that today. Is there, okay. Then with that addition, let me back up. I assume we'll deal with that under the public health portion?
We certainly can.
Okay. But that's a contract between the county and CDPHE, not the Board of Health, correct?
That is correct.
Then it'd be appropriate to deal with it in the regular commissioner meeting. Okay. Are there, with that, those changes, do we have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
So move.
Okay, I've got a
Second.
motion and a second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right. Okay, moving on. This is the approval of the minutes from the previous meeting. Have you had a chance to review them?
I did review because we have the Board of Health meetings from June 3rd, June 10th. And I reviewed those and sent my changes.
Okay, and it was just the Board of Health minutes that you reviewed, correct?
Yes.
We didn't have commissioners' minutes this time. I didn't see any. That's the reason I'm asking.
No.
Okay, so we don't have the commissioners' minutes from the commissioners meeting, just the Board of Health. Ryan, help me out on the legalities here. Is that something that should be approved while we're dealing with Board of Health business?
I ultimately don't think it matters a ton since we do have the resolution that the Board of County Commissioners sits as the Board of Health. I know we've been trying to maintain those meetings separate so that they could be posted separately. That had been the practice, but I don't think it makes a legal difference.
Okay, with the consent of the other commissioners, uh, I would like to see us cluster that under our public health portion of the meeting. Would that be okay?
To move that day or in the future?
Today.
I guess that'd be fine with me.
Okay. Commissioner Glover.
Yeah, that's fine, yeah.
Okay, so we will move the Board of Health minutes to the public health portion of the meeting. And then we'll move into the public comment period. We ask those who want to speak to identify themselves and limit your comments to 3 minutes, please.
John, we do have a comment here in the commissioner's room, Mr. McBride.
Okay, Mr. McBride.
Oh, well, it's really not so much of a comment as it is I'm seeking information in regard to the termination of Dr. Brown.
Okay, this is a period for comment. If you want to stick around, I would put that under public health business. Ryan, your thoughts on this?
I guess I need to know more information about what he is seeking specifically. Much of the information related to Miss Brown, and just to correct, she's not a doctor. She was a public health professional, but much of the information regarding her employment would be protected information for her privacy. And so I would be reluctant to advise the board to release information specific to her employment, aside from what has already been discussed at a public meeting held, I believe it was May 27th.
Okay, then maybe I'll just comment and say if I understand things correctly. She was terminated for refusing to reopen Rio Grande County. And
That is not correct.
correct me, please. Well, no, you can't do that. Nonetheless, if that's the case, I just wanted to say I commend the commissioners or whoever it was that terminated her, because she did need to be terminated.
Thank you. The attorney, do you have any other comments at this point?
I would just again refer back to the record that was made at the May 27th meeting. The termination was largely based upon lawful order of the Board of Health, and there was not compliance with that order, among other factors.
Thank you. Does that satisfy you, sir?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Are there any other comments? Hearing none, we'll move on to the consent agenda. And I'll open up the other commissioners. If they have any concerns, I do have one question on accounts payable.
Yeah.
Thanks.
My question on the accounts payable is we had to reissue, I think, 5 lost checks. Can you tell me how those were lost?
It might be a minute before we get that answer. She just left the room for a second.
Okay, well, we can hold on that.
Okay.
I can light my pipe.
Okay, John, she's back.
Okay. Trish, the question I had was on accounts payable. I noticed there were, I believe, 5 checks that were reissued because they were lost. Was that internal? They got lost internally?
The checks were given to the individuals and they lost them. We gave I think it was nearly a year to be found, and then ultimately we need to void them and reissue.
Okay, thank you. So just normal administrative procedure then.
Correct.
Okay. Then are there any other comments on the consent agenda? If not, I'll take a motion to approve.
So moved.
Got a motion?
And a second.
And a second from Commissioner Bothell. No objections. Motion carries. We're now down to county official and department head reports. When the first on that list is Jody Kern. Is she on? There she is. Okay.
I'm on, John. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So I just have a couple quick updates for the board. I just wanted to make you guys aware of a couple of things that are happening. From Employment First, which is a program that we've had for many years here at the department. It is, at this point in time, a mandatory program that we're required to run. With all of the different changes in funding and different requirements, the state is looking at what they're changing to a no-pledge state, which means we would no longer be required to run an Employment First program. The state is taking comments until the end of today, and they will be making a decision on Friday, is what we were told, if that's going to be the case. If the state chooses to become a no-pledge state and we are no longer required to run this program, then I will need to meet with you guys as the Board of County Commissioners and decide if we want to continue the program or if we want to go ahead and end the program on September 30th. So I just wanted to make sure you knew that was coming. And if you guys have any questions or need more information, to please let me know.
Okay, we have some time to deal with this. I'm sure we're going to have some questions on that of you.
Yeah, and I'll get you the information once a final decision has been made by the state, John.
Thank you. Okay,
Sure.
Next on your report.
The other thing I had, I just want to let you know, we did receive a bid for $1,100 to hopefully fix the HVAC unit. I'm just waiting to hear back from the individual on when he can come actually do the services. I have not heard that back. I don't know, Gene, if you were able to get in touch with him or not.
You know, Jody, I called him and left him a message, and I thought, excuse me, I thought I'd hear from him this morning, but I haven't yet. So maybe get on the phone as soon as we get done meeting and try to get hold of him again.
Sure, that would be great. The office she's on vacation, so if we could get it fixed, that would be very, very helpful. And then the last thing that I had for the board, and I'm hearing rumblings, the other county commissioners in the valley may have received letters from SLV Transportation from Kendra in regards to her concerns of no longer holding the non-emergency medical transportation contract. Did you guys get any correspondence besides what I forwarded it to you?
I did not see any.
Okay, you probably will be getting it because my understanding, she sent it to Alamosa, she sent it to Caneas, and I thought I heard she sent it to Swatch. As you guys saw in the emails that the San Luis Valley directors received from her, she's extremely upset. We have put in a request to Healthcare Policy and Financing to know exactly what they did to communicate to those providers. This was nothing the San Luis Valley directors had anything to do with. This contract is solely between Medicaid, which is HCPF, and the providers. And to our understanding, we were informed just a couple weeks ago, the new provider for the whole state of Colorado is a company out of Telluride. Our concerns is that our citizens that are needing that medical transportation will be still getting the services, and hopefully HCPF will be working that out. Catherine, the director in Alamosa, did speak with HCPF yesterday. She said that they are having an internal meeting today, and hopefully we should get some written correspondence from them. But I just wanted to make sure the board knew, and anybody else did, that the comments in Kendra's email are not accurate or even valid on the concerns of the San Luis Valley directors doing this.
Thank you. Commissioner Glover, I know that topics about medical transportation has come up with the transportation committees that you're sitting on. Have you heard anything about this?
Not to any more extent than just what I've read into and heard from Jody. I know that there's a lot of misstatements out there right now that are going around. So I think as people need to get together, Jody and them, that we'll have more detailed information that'll be spot on it.
Thank you.
And our intention, John, and the rest of the board, so you guys know, is that once we get the clarifying information from HCPF, that the San Luis Valley directors will be doing a joint response back. I know the county administrator in Alamosa was requesting possibly doing a reply back as well. So anything that we do, I will make sure you guys get copies of and include it on. But if you get future correspondence from anybody or you hear concerns from the community, please let me know.
Thank you very much. You have anything else in your report?
That is all I have unless you guys have further questions.
No other questions? Thank you, Jody. We'll move on then. Trish, is Sheriff available?
Yeah, I'm here.
Thank you. Sheriff McDonald, you had several items you wanted to discuss with us?
I do, and one that just come up recently, I mean, it's an ongoing thing. All three of us, myself, I've got Undersheriff Raps, and I've got Chris Crown. I'm going to hit that one now, introduce you to the new Undersheriff who's going to take Ed's place. Ed is going to retire at the end of July. So Chris is coming from Conejos County as the Undersheriff there, and we're going to go ahead and slide him in, and he's in a transition right now with Ed for the Undersheriff. So we'll get that one going. The next area I want to talk about was radios. We got a message in, got an email, and this is all referencing out of Digicom and the state radio system. This is in middle of June we got it. Our radios, and they specified the brand and the make and the model. Our radios will not and do not meet state requirements. The new state requirements, besides being an 800 megahertz, they've added 700 megahertz to it. They've already had the upgrade in the valley to the main tower systems, and we've also found over the last 2 or 3 weeks, particularly myself, we've had a degradation in our radio system with that being compatible. Not hearing calls from other agencies, not hearing Alamosa main dispatch because it switches to 700 megs. We have radios, both handhelds and mobiles, that cannot be reprogrammed or even repaired now. They will not repair them. Those radios are 18 to 20 years old. So we're reaching out, we're trying to find some costs on these radios, what's going to cost us for everything. One estimate we got in from Digicom already, it's pushing up around $43,000 just for 8 mobiles and 8 handsets for the 7,800 models. So that's going to be getting worse and worse as far as communications go for us. So I want to bring it up now since we just got it. And we're already looking at across the board, cost-wise, budget-wise, and some areas that we all need to sit down and work at. So I want to just give you a heads up on that right now and some alternatives we're trying to find. So, you know, that's on the radio side now. So.
Thank you, and I'm sure we'll have lots of questions. That was not built into your budget, I'm assuming, earlier on.
No. What is happening, I got 2 items that on the agenda, the radios and the impact of Senate Bill 217. These are unfunded mandates, okay? And we're looking for grants. I've got both Chris and Ed are really scrambling, trying to get grant money for us to cover this. We keep getting new leads. The problem is these 2 items being statewide, all agencies in the state of Colorado are going to be pushing both on the body-worn camera deal and the radio deal. So, you know, it's just not us. It is a statewide.
And it's an unfunded mandate, which we can argue about till the cows come home, I'm assuming. But regardless, we're going to have to comply at some point. We're just going to have to figure out how to pay for it.
Sooner or later, we're going to have to comply somewhere down the road. And we're looking at it now. I mean, we're looking at money, crunching figures already to what we can give and take and what we can work at. We've been doing that this month. Well, really, since COVID-19 started, we've been crunching the numbers and looking into next year and out approximately 5 years now. So, you know, the radios, it's just not mobile radios. We're looking, you know, the handhelds, pack sets. We're even looking at trying to go alternative means on the jail side because they're affected also. So, you know, it's not an easy thing, but unfunded mandates, we try to crunch and find where we can get. And I know Ed and Chris are doing a good job, but here's a problem we're running up against on our grant monies. We're not big enough agency, bottom line. We pulled one grant to get it. We weren't on their list. The Fed said, no, you can't have it. You're not big enough. You're not on our list. So, you know, we're not giving up. So that's the radios there. So yeah, if you got any other questions on it.
The only question I had on the radios, Ed, is the 8 and the 8, is that total? Is that everything we're going to need for them? I mean, there's more radios needed.
That's just
the start.
That's just a start to keep us flexible.
That's to cover us
right now. And that's what that is there. That's just to cover us right now, 8 and 8. You know, that's not down the road because between the FCC and the state and the state radio systems, we're playing a three-way tug of war here. So, you know, we're working on that, and we're going to try to do the best we can to keep everybody safe. That's if we have anybody. The other one now leading from the radios into the vehicles, when COVID-19 started, the vehicles that we had planned and ordered were put on hold. In fact, they were sitting on the assembly line. We couldn't do anything with them. They finally showed up, and I'll give that to Gene. We're looking at, for the new vehicles, that we need to replace both. We got 2 vehicles that need replaced right now. We don't even know how many miles is on one. The odometer quit working. And all we can put at is somewhere close to 300,000 miles on one vehicle we have. The other one is running at 212,000, I believe it was, that we need to get replaced. And they're starting to nickel dime us. And so these are the new vehicles. We got the cost on that. And I'd like to be able to, get those as soon as possible so we can get vehicles changed out and on the street. These are also under state bid, okay? So these are state bid costs, same as what we did last year.
Thank you. Commissioners, do you have any comments or questions on that?
I guess we haven't gotten, did we get a copy of those?
We just got it in.
It's a brand new page. I got it right here in my hand. It's
We had
dated
it from before. We gave you one before.
Yeah, we
Approved it.
it was the same thing as,
Yes.
these are the same, this is the same one we had from before COVID shut everything down. We couldn't get anything built. It's got the invoice numbers and everything on this page that I have here. So, Sheriff Don just handed this to me, so I was just looking at the numbers, but they're right on the state bid line. So, I mean, there's not a whole lot of questioning on the numbers or dickering on it or anything, so.
Okay.
We had already approved those before COVID?
Yes.
Suzanne, you're pondering.
And I'm trying to understand, is that a bid that we approved it already? Is that what we're saying?
Yeah, first.
That was back in December, January.
Okay, I have to go back and look. I don't.
We're getting a couple of head shakes, yes, and I'm sure we did, but Trish doesn't remember. She said she could pull it up and find out for us.
Okay, thank you. If I'm hearing this correctly, if they've already been approved or in the budget, then it's just a matter of making sure we can get the order fulfilled. Am I hearing this right?
Yes.
Yeah, if they're in there been approved and is in the budget, like they are setting in that budget for it already. So, and the dollar amounts look to be exactly the same as what they were on the original bid. So,
Don, are you comfortable with that?
With that amount, yes.
Okay.
Real good. Because that actually gives us everything for outfitting. And I've been working with Deb over in finance to get
back into the package deal, what we've been trying to do and show a total package, and this fits right in with it.
Commissioner Bothell, any comments? Other than
Did you say Mr. Awful?
Commissioner?
January 20.
Oh. I'm like, what? Okay, I guess if we can verify that
January.
that has already been approved and the number is the same, there's really nothing for us to do.
Yeah, and Trish just found that it was on January the 29th, so I have to pull the minutes to verify it, but I'm sure it's in there. So, okay, I'll leave this back with Ed. I mean, Don, sorry.
So Don, your next steps on that are just to go ahead and take delivery of them when they're available, I assume.
They are available right now.
We just need to check.
We can, all they need is a check and we can pick them up this weekend.
Okay, that's a finance department issue on how we do the checks, so I don't know.
And what is the amount on that one?
Let me have that back. Suzanne, the one pickup is 33,606. The other one is 31,402.
Okay, I just found them in the packet from January 29th, and that does match the amounts.
And we did approve that, correct? Officially in the minutes?
I'm bringing up the minutes now.
I have them in the 29th.
Oh, yes, they're in the minutes.
Okay. Then Trish, I guess you work with the sheriff's department and see how we get this done.
Okay?
That was a water
Okay.
transfer.
What else do you have?
Okay,
Sure.
one of the things we're working on, if you've been following it, the Senate Bill 20-217 and its effect on law enforcement. It has gone quite a ways. In 2 weeks, they've gone from 22 pages long to a 32-page document on the Senate bill. One of the things that we have to look at immediately, and this is happening this week, that we planned from last Friday and actually planned all along, we have immediate training that affects all in law enforcement, which includes the jailers and the patrol guys. And by doing the training, it's use of force. They went over the chokehold. They said it's no longer valid to use. You know, any legal basis, I'm looking at my sheet here, check sheet, but any legal basis for contacts, recording of contacts now, collecting data for the state. I got a message from the Director of Colorado Bureau of Investigation and the Department of Criminal Justice, the Adjutant General's office, that states that as of Friday last week, when it was signed, we must collect all demographic information and why we're contacting, any laws broken. We have a migrative an impact on us because the data has to be maintained by a records clerk. And eventually by 2023, January 1st, all this data has to be sent to state. So it's an ongoing thing. The biggest thing that is affecting everyone in law enforcement are the qualified immunity, being a government employee, and that is no longer in effect. Bottom line on the Senate bill was, when you read it, we're guilty until proven innocent. And it's really impacting the guys. I've already had a couple saying, you know, they're not sure if they even want to do law enforcement anymore. So this is going to be clear across the state that's going to affect it. One of the things that other states, we got 20 other states looking at Colorado's bill to put into their laws also. So law enforcement looks like we're on the out. I mean, it's just making us look bad. Everything we do, we're not doing right. The cameras, the activation, They're giving us the January 1st, 2023 mandate, unfunded mandate, to have everyone on a body camera. And every conversation and contact we have will be recorded and will be filed and maintained for the community. Anyone under Open Records Act can request a copy of the video. If there's no nudity, sexual content, juveniles in it, we don't have to redact it, but then we have to have somebody trained in redacting the software, the video, and the records. And we have to release it to them. If nothing is under investigation, then we have to release that to them in 2 weeks. So, everyone's looking at this going, this is bad, because every citizen has the opportunity of being videotaped or copied in an audio on record. So that's just a quick dirty down update. And I know I sent copies to everybody when it come out. That should have been the third rendition. And I think that one was actually the one that was signed. So that was that's the impact of it. Over a 5-year time frame, here's some numbers we're crunching. We're working hard on this. 5-year time frame. Total cost for body-worn cameras, storage, and to meet the ramifications and the specifications of the Senate bill is going to run us $250,000. And we come up. Excuse me?
Is that an annual number?
No, that's over a 5-year period. That's just one company. We're not sure. We're going out with different body-worn camera companies right now to see what they can cover for us. But the one company that we have our tasers from, they can meet all the demands the Senate bill has to cover. That means, any automatic activations, shot activation, GPS on an officer, remote video on it to where we see what's going on if there's a confrontation, the whole thing. And when you look down to what has to be reported to state, it takes a separate person, a full-time person, just to keep up with that, okay? And that has to be reported into the AG's office. Their letter from the AG's office is they don't even know how to do it yet. They're trying to figure out what they need to do to be able to collect this data. Just the storage is going to be so big, so tremendous. It's going to be bad. The annual, just on body-worn cameras, annual, $55,000 to $60,000 annually. That includes storage and the redaction software, licensing, and everything that goes with it. That's just a rough estimate. Like I said, we're still crunching numbers on this because it comes so fast. This was pushed through 2 weeks. So that's what I have. Gee.
I don't want to see you again until you have some good news.
He has a suitcase packed. You may not want to say that too loud. Here's an impact. Let me this is a what if, and a couple of them have talked. If I lose my jailers, because this affects the jailers, they are open, right now we're open to civil lawsuit automatically to $25,000 right away. And we're not going to find an insurance company that will insure us for liability, not with all this mandates. But if my jailer says, hey, I don't want to do this job, I quit and walk out, I got to pull deputies in off the road to cover the jail. No, if I get down where can't cover the jail, I'm calling state. Well, hey, I need bodies down here. Or we need to work together, and I've already talked to some other sheriffs, we may have to co-locate. Jails, I don't know. This is so new, and the ramifications go so far. No one knows how great this is going to go, because one thing leads to another. This is I don't like it. I'm going to stand right now. I'll tell you, I do not like this Senate bill.
I understand. Any other questions or comments on this, other than editorial comments? Because we could go on for 4 hours on this.
last week we put 80 hours into this.
Wow. I don't envy you, and thank you for what you're doing. I really appreciate it. Do you have anything else, Sheriff?
Is that enough today?
Yeah.
I already told you, I had to come back unless you got good news, remember?
Next time I'll have more for you, okay?
Okay, thank you so much. I really do appreciate that.
Also,
Okay.
there's going to be a protest Friday here in Del Norte.
Another one?
Okay,
Another one, 7 o'clock.
7
So-
p.m. Okay. Thank you.
That's it. No more.
All right. Then we'll move on to open managers update. Do we have anything there?
What should I say for that?
We do have Art of it here, that's wanting to, he did email an update, but was gonna follow up, but I do believe with what his update contains, it kind of belongs in the public health area.
Art, do you have time to stay on until we get to that part of the meeting?
Yes, sir, I can do that.
Okay, thank you. Then we'll move that to the public health portion of the meeting. In which case we can move on to, go ahead, Trish, I'm sorry, you have something?
Has a comment.
I'd just like to thank all the commissioners and everybody for working with me and putting up with me for last year and a half, 2 years. And it has been a pleasure working with the department.
Well, thank you, and Ed, it's been good to have you on. We're gonna miss you. What are you gonna do?
I have no idea, but I figure my wife does.
She does. She got it figured out.
Yep.
Okay, well, you're in good hands then.
Thank you, Ed.
I am. Thank you.
See you guys. Thanks.
Okay, then we'll move on to general business administrative items, and we have Tom Monaco on. I see he's there, Tom. Is Jason there with you?
I don't know if Jason is on or not. He might not have been able to make it, but I'll just kind of cover for everything. So yeah, I appreciate you guys letting me have a couple minutes to speak to you. So I think I know all of you. You know, I'm a Valley resident, but my new role is as a rural opportunity representative for the Office of Economic Development and International Trade. And the reason I'm reaching out is that, of course, as you may have heard, there's this COVID thing going around, and it's pretty much decimating our economy. And it's really hitting our rural communities particularly hard. And I just wanted to make sure that you guys are aware that I'm here, and that both the SBDC and OEDIT are a pretty important resource for the counties and the municipalities within the counties. As you guys start to navigate what your recovery, what your new normal looks like. I kind of hate to use that word, but it gets bandied around a lot. Of course, the biggest challenge is that we don't know what the future holds. We don't know what this virus is going to look like as far as how it's impacting our businesses and our economies in the next 3 months, 6 months, 12 months. So I just want to let you know that we have a couple of things that we're working on at the state level that are going to be resources for you moving forward, and to make sure that you don't hesitate to reach out to me if you have questions or you have strategies. So basically, the Office of Economic Development and International Trade is working with DOLA, Department of Local Affairs, on a fairly large EDA grant, federal grant, to help communities come up with roadmaps for recovery. And we'll be working very closely with DOLA on both. It'll both be a community and economic development program, and it's going to supplement. So our local economic development agencies like the San Luis Valley Development Resources Group here in the Valley, they are eligible for, I think, up to $400,000 in EDA funding that's non-competitive. And they're going to, my understanding is they'll probably be applying for that grant to use that for local recovery efforts. We're going to come in and supplement that to sort of fill in the gaps. So if there are areas that they're not covering or areas that are not being met within the region, that's where we're going to come in. So we're not going to try to duplicate the efforts that the DRG is going to be doing, but we're going to come in and try to make sure that nothing kind of falls through the cracks. So we work really closely with them. And what you're going to find is there's a lot of money that's getting thrown at this from different organizations, whether it's federal funding through the CARES Act. And I know you guys are aware that, through DOLA, there's CARES Act funding money that's coming in for you guys to be able to respond to COVID-related expenses. And so a lot of times it'd be kind of hard to navigate which pools of money you should be tapping into first, and how to take the most advantage of the funds that you may be getting, whether you're using as matching funding for other grants, because you want to be strategic about using the best resources of funding so that strategically you have the best reserves. So, because we just don't know what this is going to look like on a long-term recovery. And I just want to make sure you know that I'm here to meet with you, answer questions. If you have any questions about any of the department within OEDIT, as far as whether that's tourism or global business development, whatever, I'm your point person. And I want to be available to help you guys navigate what your recovery for Rio Grande County looks like. So we're not going to come in and tell you what you should be doing. What we want to do is you tell us where you see the future of Rio Grande County and the economic base that you have. And of course, you guys have a lot of tourism is a big part of the economy, and that's going to be impacted really hard. So one of the things we're trying to do is figure out how do we help pivot these economies, take advantage of some of the other programs that are out there, whether that's the remote employment, the loan program that I know Del Norte has applied for. We've also got our thing, we call it the RTAP program, Rural Technical Assistance Program, which a number of communities have taken advantage of. That program is going to be completely redesigned. A lot of that's going to go into a more virtual learning platform so that we can open up, because right now that technical assistance program maybe only hits 18 communities a year, which obviously is not enough to cover the need. So our thought is we need to create a program that is open to every community. So anybody can do it. You don't have to apply for it. We're going to put it up as a sort of a virtual platform. And we're moving the program from a year program to like a 3-year program. So the idea is the first year is going to be mostly virtual, foundational, help you guys navigate what your future looks like. The second year is more one-on-one, similar to the traditional program. And the third year is helping you find funding. So how do we tap into those resources for implementation? So once you figured out what it is you want to do, how do you pay for it? And that's always been the missing piece with a lot of our programs, is that we can help you figure out what you should be doing, but then you're on your own. And then what happens is those programs stall because they're like, well, we don't have any money. And we don't know where to get money. So now that we're seeing a lot more of these types of funding sources that are going to be available for recovery, we want to make sure that you guys be able to tap into those. We want to make sure that proportionately that money is getting into rural Colorado. So we're your advocate to help you try to figure out, how do we compete for those funds against the Front Range? How do we get more of that focus into rural Colorado? And so, a big part of that's going to be SBDC. So the SBDC is going to be standing up a bunch of programming to help the businesses in their recovery and help them try to figure out how to navigate. We already do that a lot with the payroll protection programs, the economic injury disaster loans. We don't know what that next potential recovery stimulus bill might be from the federal government. But when that comes through, we can help you navigate that, help you identify and help your businesses identify what programs they should be taking advantage of, how to do that, what's applicable, what's not applicable. So that's really all I want to do, is just come in and just make sure you guys know that we're here, and don't hesitate to reach out to us. We want to be your partner, and that's my job. My job is to be your go-to person for anything you have to do. If you have questions about anything that's happening at the Office of Economic Development and International Trade, call me up and say, hey, we heard about a program, or we have a problem, we need a solution. Is there anything in your toolbox that can help us? And if it's not in our toolbox, it might be in DOLA's toolbox, or it might be in CDLE's toolbox, or some other acronym. And I'll help you make those connections, and I'll help you try to navigate that. But I think now more than ever, it's really important that you realize that we're here as a resource, and I'm a local resource. I literally live in Alamosa. And I cover a pretty large territory, about 21 counties, but this is what I call home. So I prioritize the San Luis Valley. I'm not supposed to say that, but I do, because this is where I live. And I think that the San Luis Valley has a lot of potential. And there's a lot of state focus on the Valley. But really at the same time, there's also a lot of missing pieces for us to try to attract businesses and get maybe more manufacturing businesses. How do we diversify the economy away from just tourism, just agriculture? Because if we, as we're seeing right now, when those tourism dollars dry up, that's going to hit us really hard, and it's going to be really hard. And we're already, the thing I always say about, a lot of rural Colorado is we're running lean at the best of times. When things are good, the margins are slim. When things are bad, the margins are non-existent. And so where a lot of economies can be more resilient about that, we just don't, our businesses don't have that cushion. And it really hits them hard because of the fact that we're already in a tough situation. But at the same time, we're seeing that this is going to level the playing field a lot for a lot of rural Colorado, because there are a lot of economies that are built, if you look at some of the more affluent places, Breckenridge and Telluride, places like that, the impact for them is disproportionately greater. We're seeing, a lot of times, like, Jason, who lives in Castilla County, he's like, it's always bad here. So it's more of the same. We're not impacted as much, but what it does is it does level that playing field, and it does open up opportunities for counties in the San Luis Valley to take advantage of these programs and kind of reinvent themselves to a certain degree. If there are things that you as a community say, hey, we really would love to see a diversification. We'd love to be able to attract some manufacturing, small manufacturing. We'd love to get more gig workers in to our economy. We'll help you try to do that. We're not going to tell you what you should do. I'm not going to sit here and say, hey, you guys, this should be your strategy, because you know better than I'll ever know as far as what the community wants and what the community is designed for. But once we can help you with those conversations though. So questions?
Are there any questions?
I don't have any.
Commissioner
No,
Glover?
not right this time.
Okay.
I've got one then for you, Tom.
Yeah.
And I know that the programs are still being developed. One of the things we've heard, and it's strictly speculation, but from some of the communities, for instance, that up to 85% of the restaurants may go out of business. Obviously, that's a horrible thing, but the two questions would be, one is there potential that some of this money could help these businesses recover, or in addition, is that money potentially available to help a new buyer come in and buy out an existing business?
That's a good question. There is, one of the things that we're talking about a lot is that with a lot of these businesses going to that point is, the reality is we are going to lose a lot of businesses. That's something that we can't pretend isn't going to happen. But what we want to do is we're really looking at, we've been doing some research and trying to push an agenda of how do we help those businesses exit in a way that they can recover later. So so bankruptcy is an issue. We need to have a special, whether it's the SBA coming in and underpinning some of these programs to keep those businesses afloat, or if a business simply isn't going to make it, how do we get that where they don't lose all their assets? They're not saddled for 7 to 10 years with credit issues. If you've got good credit and you can't keep your business sustainable, we want to make sure that they're not going to be penalized and they're going to be out of that market for the next decade. We want to make sure that they can come back when things do come back and be able to get access to capital, be able to maybe start a new venture without all of the traditional penalties that come with a business going out of business. But I think there are going to be options. We're waiting to see what the federal government does as far as more stimulus programs. I mean, the biggest thing with both the payroll protection and the EIDL loans is the programs just really didn't address the smallest businesses. And we saw that on a daily basis, that they were designed for mid to large size businesses. They really weren't put in place for the mom and pop, sole proprietor, restaurants, things like that. Those businesses weren't taken care of in those funding rounds. So to answer your question, I don't know. I think that yes, there should be some programs there, and we are keenly aware of it. Restaurants are always tough, and restaurants here in the Valley are particularly tough. On the best of days, getting funding for a restaurant is hard. So finding whether and that's the thing too, is a lot of these things is there's tons of there's tons of loan, like access to capital is not an issue as far as the money's there. They're throwing so much money into these revolving loan funds, it's not even funny. Millions and millions of dollars. The problem is the businesses can't take on the debt burden. And that's the disconnect. It's like, you know, even a zero interest loan is still a loan. And the business is like, you know, I'm a restaurant. I don't know what my cash flow is going to look like in 6 months. So for me to take on any debt burden is insane, because I don't know if I'm going to be able to cover it. And it could be the thing that actually puts me out of business. So we're looking at more grant programs. We're looking for places where people can tap into capital that they're not going to have to repay. And that's really where our big focus is for the small businesses, because that's the only thing that's going to keep them in business, is getting funding that's not going to saddle them with debt.
Well, that makes a lot of sense. Even free money, if you can't pay it back, it doesn't matter. And
Exactly.
Under the payroll protection, I had heard that particularly in sole proprietors, small businesses, where they weren't taking a salary, or they didn't have even any employees perhaps, or in one case, maybe the wife was working there for free, payroll protection did nothing for those businesses.
Yep. And the smaller businesses, when you had little or no employees, the reality was you're better off doing unemployment. So the pandemic unemployment program, which was open to sole proprietors and small business owners, they were going to make more money. So if you were an LLC and you were taking owner draws out of the company, you could use that to count as payroll, but generally it tended not to be a lot of money. And so when you looked at a payroll protection program that was going to give you 8 weeks of salary, it was pittance. It was just not enough money to really do anything, because of you were hamstrung on how you could utilize those funds. So in the original bill, it was only 25% could be used for things outside of payroll. Now they've changed that, and they've changed it for the better, but it's a little too late. Whereas if you went on unemployment, because of the pandemic unemployment with the $600 a week additional benefit, people were making a lot more money on unemployment than they were ever going to get through the payroll protection program, and they didn't have to do the process of having it forgiven, and they weren't hamstrung on how they could utilize the funds. So we were directing a lot of people to look at pandemic unemployment over PPP, because it was just a better deal for them. The other problem was, if you did have a payroll protection program loan, getting your employees to come back to work when they were making more money on unemployment was a huge issue. So especially if you had single mothers, people where they needed childcare, they're like, you want me to come back to work and take a pay cut? And so it was really causing a lot of friction between employers and employees, and putting people in really difficult situations. And then there just wasn't a lot of alignment on the reconciliation of the program, as far as the benchmarks you had to meet to have it forgiven didn't align with the realities of the way the funding was happening. And so it was incredibly problematic, and most of the banks were incentivized to write bigger loans and smaller loans. So that's why, remember that first round, you know, Wells Fargo, I think another city, they were getting sued because they were basically not taking the loans as they came in. They were obligated to do the loans and process them as they came in. Instead, they prioritized larger loans, existing customers, because they got up to, I think it was 5% on every loan up to $300,000, and 3% up to $1 million. So of those two loans of PPP, the banks, I think, got $20 billion in fees. So just right off the top, they were making a killing. And what was happening is that they didn't want to write a loan to the small restaurant down the street, because it wasn't worth the effort of doing the paperwork, when they could write the loan to the bigger business and make a lot more money and do less paperwork. So they tried to address that, but it left a lot of our small rural business out in the cold, and they couldn't take advantage of the programs.
Thank you, Tom. Are there any other questions for Tom at this point?
I don't have anything.
Good. So
Cool.
If anybody approaches us, or as we talk to the cities and they're talking about their plans, we just send them to you.
Yeah, or you guys, as you guys start to look at what your recovery looks like as a county, I'd love to be in on those conversations if you feel it'd be valuable for us to make sure that we're not missing any opportunities, or strategically how you might be utilizing federal funding versus state funding, because some of it you can be using for match, some of it you can't, and it can be kind of confusing. And then using the right pools of money at the right time, so that other pools of money are being kept in reserve because they can cover
Just get off of
funding.
What was a home health?
Okay,
Thank you, Tom.
great. Thank
If
you. I
there's
appreciate
nothing
it.
else, we thank you for sticking around for our boring meeting.
Take care.
Take care. Okay, moving on to the next item, the Community Development Block Grant Contract Amendment, signature required. Do we need to vote on this, Trish?
It definitely needs your signature. So we are the fiscal agent for that, and they are asking for their first amendment, which would increase by $80,000.
Okay, you just need a signature on that then?
Yours specifically as chairman, yes.
Okay, I can come in and sign that. Now we're on to the CBRF
Do we need,
collaboration. What?
do we need to vote on signing that?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean,
Do you need to vote on it or not? Because that's pass-through money, right? We're just fiscal agent.
I think you need to at least vote to authorize the chair to sign it.
Okay, well, then we'll go back up to that. Entertain a motion to authorize.
I would move that we authorize the chair to sign the contract amendment for Community Development Block Grant Amendment.
Thank you.
Second.
Now we have a second motion, a second. Is there any discussion or objections? Hearing none, the motion carries. Okay, now the CBRF, which is the, I can't remember the acronym, Relief Fund, collaboration with the municipalities. This is the $966,000 available to the county and the municipalities within that county. And it's a letter that notifies, as I understand, DOLA that we are working collaboratively. Is that correct?
Yes.
Correct.
So
Okay.
this will get uploaded into the portal when we opt in. And it was prepared for the chair's signature as well as the respective mayor's signatures for the municipalities of Monte Vista, South Fork, Del Norte, and Center.
Okay. So I assume what we're looking for here, since we have a tight deadline on this, is motion to approve the agreement and the letter and authorization for the chairman to sign.
Yes, to approve the letter as to form, and then the agreement will follow. The agreement is something that we maintain internally with the municipalities, is not something that we would provide to DOLA, according to Christy Dune, who's our Southwest Regional Manager, South Central Regional Manager.
And it appeared to me the way the letter was written that it wasn't specific about how we were going to do it. And so we still have some leeway in there for adjusting what we do or how we do it.
That is correct.
Okay, I would make that motion.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, discussion or objections? Hearing none, the motion carries. Discussion on administrator for the CVRF fund. Specifically, if we're going to act as fiscal agent, the county's acting as fiscal agent on this and the point of contact with DOLA for these relief funds. How do we staff to take care of the bookkeeping on this?
And what is Tricia's recommendation?
If we're going to be the fiscal agent for all the municipalities, it would be my recommendation to hire a part-time person to administer that. We currently have a part-time accountant currently, and we would need, that person is unavailable to do that extra work. It will be very time-consuming.
Trish, are you suggesting that we increase the hours for our current part-time accountant? Is that or are you looking for perhaps another position, another person?
I think given the type of work, I think a different person would be best suited. Our current accountant, it would makes a bit more money than what would be necessary for this type of work.
Do you feel that we can probably find a person who's qualified and can pick up this job quickly?
I would think so.
then timing on this matters. I assume if we're going to do that, that we would want to start that hiring process immediately. Is that your recommendation?
I mean, and all of this depends on whether we're gonna be the fiscal agent for all the municipalities.
That's basically what the letter of agreement says, isn't it, Ryan?
It doesn't say anything about being the fiscal. That would be spelled out in the terms of the agreement. I'm assuming that that's remains the position of the board and the municipalities. This just says that we're intending to opt in for the receipt of that CVRF funding. It's a very basic letter.
Right. But the presumption in the conversations with the municipalities has been that Rio Grande County would be the contractor with DOLA for everybody in the county, which basically makes us fiscal agent, I guess, call it what we will. And therefore, if we're going to do that, we need to go ahead and start to fill that position and set up the procedures for that.
Yeah.
Are the other commissioners on board with authorizing the administration to go ahead and open up that position and start advertising for it?
Yes, I am. I think it's, sorry.
Go ahead.
No, I think it's a good idea to go ahead and get started on it right away. Trish can get that done, so.
I think that we would need somebody in that position, and I think we still maybe have some discussion about how we handle the fiscal agent status or whatever. But I think regardless is having somebody in that position that with all of these grants coming down from COVID, it's probably going to require somebody. So yes, I believe we ought to go ahead and start that process.
Okay, we're creating a new position in the county in the administration office. Duties to be determined. I would assume that we need to have a motion to get this recorded in the minutes and approval.
Yeah.
So, Trish, can you start?
I would move that we hire this person.
Okay, we have a second.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion or objections? Hearing none, the motion carries. Then Trish, you can start that process immediately. We'll have to figure out the pay scales or what we're offering for that position, things of that nature. But right now we're authorizing you to go ahead and start the search on that. Okay. Go ahead. I'm sorry. I heard a voice.
I just said
Okay. Next one is tourism appointments, and I don't have that printed up, so I can try to find it. Trish, I'll open it up with you. You're the one that's got the paperwork.
I'm sorry, what was that?
I said you're on. Tell us what's going on with the tourism appointments.
So as of January, we had a lot of tourism members step away, unable to fulfill those duties. So at this point, there is not a quorum. There are only 2 members that remains on that board, so it's up to the county commissioners to appoint the tourism board in full. Created a resolution with using the letters of interest. I believe we, after previous work session conversations, we discussed pretty much all but 1 letter of interest is included, plus the 2 that remained from previous years. We have the term begins and the term ends. I did separate those as to, I guess we would look about 1.5 years, 2.5 years, and 3.5-year terms. The bylaws claim that the tourism runs 3 years. We have 3 from Monte Vista, 3 from Del Norte, and 3 from South Fork. Those members are for Monte Vista, Linda Burnett, who was already on the board, and her term would end in 2021. We have Carol Riggenbach at Monte Vista, Her term would be 2022. Ken Hamko, Monte Vista, term would end 2023. And then from Del Norte, we have Brandy McClure, term would end in 2021. We have Dustin Underwood, who currently on the board and would remain. His term ends in 2022. We have Sam Bricker from Del Norte, whose term would end in 2023. And South Fork, we have Travis Cross, term ends 2021. Stephen Valdez, term ends 2022. And Cheryl McIntosh, which would be 2023. So that, from the letters that we received, minus the one who did not qualify, that would be our board of 9, if accepted.
Are there questions or comments from the commissioners?
I was just looking at the resolution that was in the folder, and that wasn't the same one, so I was looking it back up.
I can resend that to you if you like.
Found it.
Commissioner Glover.
I think with the 9 people we have in place, we can actually put the board back together. We can adhere to all of the tourism bylaws, reset the officers, and get the board back to working functionally, and start getting tourism back on track.
Trish, one thing, that bit of information I didn't see or hear is how are these individuals connected to the tourism industry? That's one of the requirements in the statute.
I might need Jean's help a little bit because I didn't have that on the resolution. So Linda Burnett from Monte Vista works for the Chamber of Commerce, or with. Carol Rickenbach, Monte Vista, own Rain Brews. Ken Hamko, the hotel, which one?
Sand Hills.
Sand Hills, thank you. Brandy McClure, Del Norte, that is Justin's sister from Colorado Grill. Dustin Underwood is REC, Del Norte. Sam Bricker owns Mellow Moon in Del Norte. Travis Cross, that one I need help with.
Riverbend
in South Fork. Stephen Valdez,
Quality Motel
in South Fork. And Cheryl McIntosh is Tiny Timbers.
Okay. The only one I heard on that list that didn't seem to be directly related to tourism is the individual from the Rural Electric Cooperative.
That's correct, and that's the one that we visited about. We'll be looking to replace that position, but because he's the only trained treasurer we have on there, I thought we could leave him in place long enough to get somebody to take that spot and then go from there.
And have you talked to him about that, Gene?
Yes, I visited with him a couple different times on it. So.
And he's good with that?
Yes.
Okay.
And it's showing that he's from Del Norte, or he's representing Del Norte, and previously he was representing Monte Vista.
They had him at Monte because he used to work out of the Monte office all the time, but he actually works out of his Del Norte home office now. About 99% of the time he's here in town, so.
And that's kind of a weird technicality because REC is actually in the county, not in the town. So it's
right.
kind of regional sort of thing rather than town specific.
Yeah.
I don't want to get into the zip code argument again.
No, thank you.
Okay.
And on some of these, the letters of interest, they were kind of maybe non-specific. There was one where it was, it didn't appear to be a letter of interest. It was more of a, sure, I'm accepting your invitation, as opposed, and so my question is, do all of these people know what the job is and what it entails, and the fact that we have to appoint them?
All of these people I have personally talked to, I have personally gone out and told them what the requirements are, the number of meetings, what months we meet and don't meet, the requirements of the offices they'll be holding, And so everybody's been informed of the time frame. I'm not sure what the letter's intents were. I'm more interested in the fact that people actually want to be involved in this, and they took enough time to at least jot something down and have a conversation to help redesign and help get the tourism board going again.
If I could weigh in on this just a little bit, my personal opinion, accept it, just take it as that, is that in the past, the tourism board has primarily been responsible for allocating the lodging tax funds for tourist promotion in the region. We are going to see a bunch of other potential financing sources coming down that may be directly available to people involved in the tourism industry. And we need a board in place that can help facilitate even that, or at least act as a central point for information. And so my personal opinion is that it would be important to get this board in place right now so it can start shaping its strategies going forward.
Yes, sir, I agree 100%, because there are a lot of things that are going to happen that'll be a little bit different when this COVID thing starts shaking out and the things start coming back, so.
That's my 2 cents worth.
Well, it's worth every bit of it.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks,
I'll
John.
collect later, yeah, okay. So we would need a motion to approve these appointments. And this is in the form of a resolution.
Okay, back to my other question is, I know in the letter from Brandy McClure that she said that they would like to be on there and that she would sometimes come and that her brother would sometimes come. Does she know that this is a person being appointed and not a business?
Yeah, we've talked about that since that letter came out. Justin's not going to be involved in it. He's just too busy with the food truck and everything. So Brandy will be our representative. She'll be the one sitting on the board for us.
Anything else on that, Suzanne?
I don't know.
This would be a start. They can get their bylaws revised. This is actually going to be, I say more complex, but more involved, I think, than previous tourism board activities as I see it right now. We do meet the criteria of having 9 members representing each of the communities proportionately. And anyhow, that's just my thought. So I'll entertain a motion. If somebody wants to move this.
I'd like to make a motion that we go ahead and approve the names for the tourism board as registered, please.
And I guess I would second it.
So we have a motion by Commissioner Glover and a second by Commissioner Bothell. Is there any other discussion or objections on this resolution? Hearing none, the motion carries. If there's nothing else under general business, we'll move on to the public health. And this, for the purposes of keeping it consolidated, this will function as the Board of Health discussion also. And the first item there is the minutes, to approve the minutes from the previous meeting. And Suzanne, I saw your comments on that. Do we have any more comments on this?
John, I think did we skip the governing policy approval?
Well, we must have, we didn't talk about it. Now I'm trying to find it.
So it's following the tourism.
I don't have your updated minutes or agenda, apparently. It didn't show on mine. We'll back up to that, the governing policy approval.
After Monday's work session, what we did was assign particular people, the 3 commissioners and myself, to particular goals for 2020, and changed a few old typos that have been there for a very long time. I resent it to you, and I'd like to see if we can get this approved.
And I would move that we approve the governing policy.
We have a motion by Commissioner, a motion and a second, moved by Commissioner Bothell, second by Commissioner Glover. Are there any more discussion or objections to this? Hearing none, the motion carries. Okay, now we'll move on to public health and the approval of the public health minutes. There are some corrections in there that were submitted by Commissioner Bothell. Are there any other corrections, comments, deletions?
I also made some corrections this morning and sent them in to Deanne and for everyone else's review.
Okay, and we've had a chance to review those.
And I would move to approve the minutes as amended.
We have a motion to approve the minutes as amended. Do we have a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any comments, objections? I have a comment. I just wanted to clarify that the corrections were due to someone's title being incorrectly printed, and just one confusion about something being paid this year versus last year. So that was mine. And I think Suzanne was referencing the title of the employee as well. Correction in that.
And also there was one typo.
Okay. The only comment I would have on it, in reference to Tony Stephen Stewart, and it says ex-public health. It's just personal preference. I prefer the term former, rather than ex. That's just my preference. Ex just carries a different connotation.
Okay.
Is that okay? Do you approve that change?
I think that's fine.
Yeah.
Okay, thank
Good.
you. Okay, so got a motion and a second. Any objections, other comments? Hearing none, that motion carries. We're now down to the Chris Wetland septic variance request for Jasper. I see Randy's still on. Are there any, Randy, you want to, has this been presented to us before, or is this new?
This one is new.
Okay. Then if you go ahead and give us a quick brief on that, Randy?
Yeah, so the variance request you have before you is a variance request to the Rio Grande County on-site wastewater treatment system regulation for Chris Wetland. The legal description is lots 1 through 6, block 59, Cornwall subdivision, otherwise known as 534 6th Street in Jasper. And, you know, you heard a variance request for the Davis Gallagher residence here a couple of weeks ago. This is basically the same condition. In the variance request letter for the previous variance, it addressed both the Davis Gallagher and this particular application. So very, very similar soil condition, very similar, you know, as far as living condition, seasonal cabin. Neither, I believe, are looking to do a well. So we did receive yesterday the hard copy of the application along with the payment for the variance. Again, the variance request letter that was received back in late May was for both this residence and the Davis, the previous variance you heard a couple weeks ago. And we've also received the proposed design for this project. Again, very similar, just a different lot from the previous variance application. So it looks like the boxes are all checked.
Okay, thank you. Commissioners, comments, questions? None?
I don't.
No, I think, I'm sorry, Suzanne, I think I'm good with Randy's definition is pretty point on. We'd seen part of this earlier, so that's good.
Okay. That being
And-
said, I'll entertain a motion, or if you have other comments, go ahead, Suzanne.
I was just going to make a motion that we go ahead and approve this one.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second?
Okay, motion by Commissioner Bothell, second by Commissioner Glover. Are there any objections or other comments or discussion? Hearing.
I'd like
Okay, I'm sorry.
to point out that we have prepared, Ryan has prepared, resolutions, which is a practice that has happened in the past at Rio Grande County, accepting this variance, and it's also to be given to the individual to apply the application. So we do have two prepared, one from the last couple meetings, which is the Davises, plus wetlands. So we would need those two resolutions signed.
Okay, would you amend your motion to authorize the signing of those resolutions?
Yes, I would.
Okay, Commissioner Glover? Okay.
Second.
Yes. Okay, and again, any discussion, other discussion, comments or objections?
And Chairman, yeah, we were we were discussing that the outcome of the variance proceeding needs to be given to the applicant in writing, and I think a resolution is a perfect way to do that. And I would imagine this resolution would get recorded over at the clerk and recorder's office.
Yes.
Maybe Brian can
Yes,
answer that.
And Cindy was the one, the clerk and recorder is the one who brought it to my attention that this was a past practice. I think it was, I'm very glad that she did. And I agree with you, Randy. I think this is probably the best way to evidence the commissioner's decision. And so that will be recorded. And if there's anything else that they need, otherwise, I think this should be sufficient.
Thank you. Does that satisfy you, Randy?
Yeah, that's perfect.
Okay,
Thanks, Randy.
so we have the motion and we have the second. Is there any other discussion or objections? Hearing none, the motion carries. Next item on this will be the Healthcare Coalition contract for 2020-2021 that commences July 1st and runs through June 30th of 2021. So it's fiscal year 2021 contract. Any comments on this? It's basically mirror image of last times with maybe the stipends dealt with. Is that part of it?
It's very close mirrored from last year. So given the lack of time and the conversations with CDPHE, we are approving just about identical, knowing that we will be submitting an amendment as soon as possible to fix some of the budget issues, which do include those stipends. CDPHE did add language to this year, specifying that these stipends are not just for meetings, but must have work associated with them. But Tony's here as well. We do have a little bit of changes, but we do need to discuss it with the steering committee first, but there will be an amendment. So this would be signed as is with the intention to amend.
Okay, so it's a placeholder at this point. We understand that it will be amended as appropriate going forward, but it needs to be signed now before the end of the month, I assume.
Correct.
So if we move to do this, is my signature that's required on that?
Yes, and it's actually by Adobe. So if I could have permission to do electronic signature on this one.
Okay, if the commissioners approve this, then you have my authorization to use electronic on it, a DocuSign, I guess.
This is exactly what it is.
And I would move that we approve it.
Okay, you have a second?
Second?
Okay, motion by Commissioner Bothell, second by Commissioner Glover. Any other discussion, comments, or objections?
Before we move on to the next, if you remember, I did add to the agenda, this would be a good time.
Let me wrap this one up and then we'll go to that, okay? That being said, the motion carries. Okay, Trish, you're good.
This would be a good time to also, I like the same thing, we have a renewal contract for CDPHE contract amendment 2 for Communities That Care. That's the one that came in this morning. They also require DocuSign, so I would be looking for approval to do that on behalf of the chairman.
Okay, are there any questions or anything about the Communities of Care grant?
And is this the amendment that covers the fact that communities that care people are working with COVID? Is that what this is talking about, or is this just another extension?
I might need Paul to confirm this, but I do believe this is the amendment. We have $26,000 and change left over that was not spent due to COVID, lack of travel and whatnot. CDPHE has approved for that additional $26,000 to go towards public health COVID hours. So I believe that is the amendment for that. Tony or Paul, you can, don't worry saying anything if I'm correct, and please correct me if I'm wrong.
I do believe that is the case.
Okay, in that case, I would move that we approve that.
Second.
Okay, we have, you're getting all the motions today in this session. Motion by Commissioner Bothell, seconded by Commissioner Glover. Is there any other comments or discussion on this? Any objections? Hearing none, the motion carries, and you can use my electronic DocuSign also on that. Okay. Next item is the Ontario Junior College Agreement for Services for Immunization. I am not familiar with what this program is, so I don't have an opinion. Paul, can you give us an idea what this is?
Yes, I can elaborate a little bit. This is an agreement between Public Health and Ontario Junior College, who runs the Migrant Head Start in the center area in our county. And historically, we have provided immunization services on their site with our nursing service, as well as we've also provided tuberculosis testing services to their facility. And this contract would be a continuation of that agreement that we've had in the past.
Thank you. Any other discussion or questions, comments?
I'm assuming that it's worked out well and there's no reason to change.
I believe so. I mean, my only caveat to, these grants moving forward is our public health capacity to manage both COVID and, our routine nursing services. So I will be proposing that I have additional help to facilitate these grants as we move forward. So that being said, yes.
Thank you.
Okay. I would move that we approve that.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Bothell, second by Commissioner Glover to approve the agreement for services for immunization with Ontario Junior College. Are there any other comments, discussion, or objections? Hearing none, motion carries. Okay, we're now down to general discussion regarding COVID. Paul, give us a skinny. What's happening?
All right. Well, I can I believe I'll just kind of start with a general overview of COVID in our county. So as of today, we are at 69 total cases to date. 17 of those 69 cases are what I call active or are actively being asked to isolate. Over the weekend, maybe the day before or so, we have had our first 2 fatalities related to COVID in our county. Currently, we are working with 2 local organizations that have had outbreaks within our community. And we are working with them on facilitating testing for individuals, guidelines for workplace safety and things like that.
valley-wide, we are seeing an uptick in the numbers that are coming in daily. There is an increase in the numbers we are seeing coming in regionally and locally. Far as the contractors I had worked out with you guys and got approval for a little while back, we've had 3 contractors sign contracts and get them back to us. However, one of those contractors has had a family-related issue and will no longer be able to contract with us. So at this point, I've only really been able to sign one, which we are upboarding, and then he's taking his first cases this week. And the other individual is more open for translation services. It's not a health professional. So I didn't get quite as much help as I would like to out of our contractors. And the other individuals have not replied, and I don't know if I'm getting a reply back from. So out of the 6, I was only able to acquire 1 real contract tracer and 1 translator through what I've been able to do so far for bolstering our capacity. That's kind of a general update that I have. Now, I would kind of like to request, again, at least to have the board consider, I do believe I could use another nurse or 2 to help with my capacity, both for COVID related services and contact tracing, as well as these other contracts we've kind of discussed that we're passing and moving forward related to the immunization services and TB services and child care services that we provide, or nursing care services we provide for other organizations around the county. So I'm hoping to get that on your guys' brain at least and start thinking about that if we can. So that's pretty much what I have today.
Thank you, Paul. Suzanne, it looks like you're ready to speak.
And on the nurse, I'm assuming that you want them soon, immediately?
I would like to put out an advertisement as soon as we can. I do believe it's been historically a little difficult to find nurses in this part of this part of Colorado. And I believe we may need a little time to have people apply and all that. And I'm really, I want to be geared up by August to be able to provide these immunization services and all these services that are key to our community, as well as be able to handle the COVID contact tracing. So yes, as soon as we can to that end, if it's to that.
Okay, I would move that we go ahead and get out the job availability. I'm also wondering if you get several applications, if there might be a potential of possibly some that whoever is not hired, maybe they would be interested in the contract position.
I think that would be an absolutely great thing to consider for sure, just to bolster our capacity for this unknown. And I believe we may have a spike in the fall that we should be prepared for. So I believe that would be very good too, if the individuals we don't hire, if we could possibly have a contract or a contract in the waiting would be a great idea.
Commissioner Glover, comments?
I agree. I think we need to go ahead and make a valiant step forward to try to hire some nurses to get this bolstered up and get us back under the regs we need to stay inside of. So I'm all in favor of doing it. And that's my second, I guess, to Suzanne's motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Before we go on, I have a question or comment. While we understand the needs, it would help if we had it kind of spelled out specifically what we're looking for, what position we're trying to fill, where the service gaps are, whatever that happens to be. And Tony, I see you're on also. in your assessment with Trish on funding for this going forward within the current grant structure and potential COVID help on this?
I can't say for sure right now. I know with Paul moving into, we're using a bit of different funding for him now. I would assume that would free up some of the funding. But we're just going to have to look through, especially the COVID opportunities, and create a map and decide where the funds need to go and how to prioritize that.
Okay, thank you. On that, I would ask that Paul, Tony, and Trish working together to come up with some sort of a report recommendation chart, if you will, bullet point for the Board of Health for our review. But in the meantime, to meet the immediate needs of the Public Health Department, as I understand, we have a motion and a second to go forward, and going forward means what? Hiring a nurse, multiple, what are we saying?
I think we need to make sure we get a nurse, and then to Paul's and Suzanne's point was, if we could hire a couple and one was willing to do contact tracing and one is a nurse, so however it worked out, I think we need to look at it as we get them lined up to hire them.
Paul, does that give you enough to go on, or do you need more latitude?
I believe that gives me a good foundation to start from, and I believe we can provide that job description to you within this week here, really, to expedite this process.
Okay.
So Paul, get with Danielle, because we already have, one that you were hired on. So if you, that at least gives you a basis where you can adjust it from there.
I believe that's where we should start, absolutely. Yes.
Okay, before I call the vote on this, what I'm hearing is that Paul, Trish, and Tony will work together to come up with this. One is you guys come up with the job description, too, how we're paying for it within the system that we have. But in any event, at this point, we're prepared to authorize Paul to go forward with this and hire as quickly as practical. I'm assuming we don't have to wait 2 weeks to hire somebody in terms of notification or times we're running ads, that as soon as we have an eligible candidate that's interested, qualified candidate, that Paul would be authorized to go ahead and employ them. Is that
my intent?
Correct.
okay? And Jane, does that comport with yours?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so we have the motion and the second. Is there any other discussion? Are there any comments or objections? Hearing none, the motion carries. Get to work, Paul.
Thank you, sir. This is going to be very beneficial to the Public Health Department. I do appreciate that.
You bet. Thank you. Do you have anything else, Paul, before we move on?
Art, I just saw that he left, but we were going to talk about his update, and I'm wondering if Paul might be interested in sticking around for that.
I'd be glad to stay on and listen along here.
Okay, but we haven't gotten him back yet. Oh, Trish, you trying to contact him?
Okay. Okay, could you possibly call in on your way? Okay, thank you. Okay.
So we're waiting.
Art has a meeting at 12:30, so we had to disconnect, but he's going to be calling while he travels. So we give a moment. So, I can kind of start. He did email everyone a update. I highly doubt you had a chance to look at it, because I believe it was just moments before the public hearing began. Essentially discussing a couple of his concerns with the SLV emergency post from yesterday and the task force meeting that will be happening at 1 p.m. today throughout the region. So I don't know, Paul, if you want to, until he logs on by phone, if you want to just tell what you know about those two incidents, if you don't mind.
Well, I can give a brief overview. I don't know that I know the thorough story, but it is my understanding that there was a Facebook post put out, I don't know if it was yesterday or the day before, but recently nevertheless, that had kind of a, how would I describe it? I don't have the exact verbiage, but the gist of it was, vote with your money related to businesses in the San Luis Valley, I guess, something related to that. And there's a lot of backlash and maybe not the most appropriate information coming out from any side on this public post. So I don't know all about it. I've only heard about this on our morning meeting this morning. So I can't really get into that one too deep. Now, the other thing the meeting is a resource request, I believe, that is kind of the regional group of the San Luis Valley Public Health is trying to bolster our capacity, kind of like how my asking for nurses. We found some gaps that we have trouble keeping all the data straight, just having a data entry person putting in positives and how many, tests have been run, those types of things. I believe incident type command individual maybe was included in that. And I believe they've kind of divided it up and are trying to approach the county commissioners from each county to maybe pay a piece of that out of the CARES Act funding and the ELC funding that's been put out through COVID. So I believe that's why the meeting has been called by Dave Osborne through the emergency command here that's coming up.
Okay, and we'll have that conversation at 1 o'clock, which is kind of a bookend for us. Back to the Facebook post, the complaint generally was the politicization of the SLV emergency Facebook site, which allegedly the counties are helping fund. Before we talk any more about that, I do have an issue with the politicization. And if you recall, when Linda Smith made a request for kind of expanded regional help, the last line on her request said, "No National Guard," which I viewed as a political statement. And I think the sense is in the community that the SLV emergency is being manipulated to make political statements held by a few of the people who are on that group. I've got another one out there. I can't remember exactly what it was, but it fell into the same category from that group or from that regional group. I'm not just talking about SLV emergency. But I am deeply concerned that people are using this for a political platform. And I think that the commissioners need to be aware of that as we go forward to make sure that we're not participating in somebody's political agenda. And they need to be aware of that. And reference to the call this afternoon, my read on that chart, I have several issues. One is this thing came to us yesterday for a call today. Nobody contacted the commissioners to talk about this before this document came out. And on there, I see that we have people in motels in Monte Vista or in the Rio Grande County, and the commissioners, or specifically the Board of Health, was totally unaware of this, had not been apprised of it. And the questions that come, are these people, are these cases Rio Grande County cases? Or are they being placed in Rio Grande County by regional? And again, if that's the case, they have completely bypassed the Board of Health and statutory authorities as well as the commissioners. And so I have deep concerns about this meeting today because it appears to shove the commissioners and the Board of Health clear down to the bottom and off to the side. And it looks like a fairly transparent attempt to take all the authority and control and place it at this, whatever they want to call this, DOC level, whatever it is, level. And these are the kinds of things that have caused heartburn throughout in the past. And I know that the community at large does not support this effort. Those are my comments. Do other people have comments? I see Art's on phone, but we can go ahead and finish up this conversation if we will right quick.
Can you hear me, Commissioner?
Yes.
Dan, Art, did you hear what I just said?
Yes, sir, I did. And I'd like to comment on that slide deck that you guys have received that is part of the call today. This was instituted late last week, and I had not seen the slides until yesterday for the simple fact that I had no access to my computer due to it being in the shop. Long and the short is there's a lot of things on there that the emergency managers as a whole are not happy with. You spoke of the Facebook posts. The majority of us have asked to be removed from that tag list. It made us look as if we were in agreement with the comments made, and that is so far from the truth, it's not funny. The way this slide deck was initiated was a commissioner from one of the counties called the governor's office and complained that the communication between the valley, our region, and the state was not effective. At that time, the governor's office, the way I understand it, contacted the state emergency management and the CDPHE department head to find out what's going on down here. There was a conference call with those gentlemen, and they actually made the comment, we don't see an issue, but apparently there is. We're getting word that the information is on, it all falls back to information. From the start of the COVID, everything has been based on information. Doing things virtually has been difficult for everybody involved. But I believe that's why this slide deck was put in, to see if there were any needs from the counties. Now, as far, I looked at our slide, and I did not fill anything out on it because I wasn't able to. But it's, I do not see a, I don't know where the problem is, and I'm hoping to get a resolution to it during this call today to find out what this slide deck is actually going to achieve, if anything. So that is the concern that I have is, you know, this is a public health issue, and I know that in some places public health is saying they're overtaxed. In other places they're saying that they're not at their threshold, so they're okay. Many of the counties are reporting status green straight across the board. I know when I do my emergency managers report, I base my information off of what I get from Paul, and right now I have based we are green across the board except for public health and health and medical, due to the fact of the staffing and the 2 fatalities that we had yesterday. So I don't know what this slide deck will accomplish, but it's something that the state CDPHE and the state emergency management team has put into place to see if that will help anything. I do feel that the state should have contacted each county individually instead of through the region, because you know how things get lost in translation. And I had no control over how things were set up through the region. But I am attempting to be on that call. I have a meeting with one of our partners here at 12:30, and hopefully I'll be done by then to be on the meeting. I hope that you got my email as far as the rest of my updates, and if you have any questions, you can contact me.
Thank you. Thank you, Art. Back to the question we had about, and this is for Paul. Paul's still on. I'm looking around to see if he's there. Yeah. Okay, I see it, Paul. The people that are in motels now under isolation, where did they come from?
I'm sorry, John, I missed that question. I got another phone call.
Okay, the people that were placed in motels for isolation in Rio Grande County, are they county residents or are they out of the county?
Those individuals are seasonal workers that have been brought in. The group that brought them in, that brings them in every year, did have a very detailed plan that they did provide to me as well. And part of that plan was to house any contacts or positive individuals in a hotel. I believe this is a good plan rather than, we've had some issues in the past of large groups of people, all in that same place passing COVID around. So my opinion is that it is a pretty solid plan to keep these people separated from the other individuals.
Where do they figure in the case count?
At this point, they have not hit our case count, I do not believe. I have not included them in. We are just in the process of determining if they are Saguache, if they are Rio Grande, or if they are California or Texas, or where they actually are going to be assigned to.
Okay, but they're in our county right now. Does that fall under your health department then?
It does, and I am following with those individuals. We have 3 positive individuals related to that at the moment.
What's that doing to your capacity?
At this point, it is not doing a whole lot because of the organization, the workplace providing that isolation and quarantine and asking them to remain in that quarantine. Our burden isn't especially high, other than we need to do an initial interview. Follow-up is not a whole lot because we don't fear that they're traveling around the community. They have a safe place to isolate. They have the resources such as food and those types of things that they need, so they won't have to leave their isolation.
So when this gets out to the community, people don't have to fear that if they're walking by one of the hotels in town that they're going to be exposed to somebody, or that
They
they'll
should
be
not.
grocery store?
There is not a need for these individuals to have a fear of that, no.
Okay. I would ask from your office that when these arrangements are made, that you advise the Board of Health at that time, so we're aware of it. I don't want to find out. I heard about this on the street, and that's the wrong place for me to get information. Accurate, but wrong. Did I get it that way?
Absolutely.
Art, I know that you had made arrangements with some hotels for isolating people. Are you working with Paul on this?
Can you hear me still?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, that was a one-time case in the very beginning, and I did work with Paul. As of anything else, as far as the hotels, I have not had any privy to putting anybody into a motel. There is the Moving Manor that has offered to assist again if necessary, but the only case that I was aware of that went there or any hotel and motel that I had spoken to was that one case that we had early on.
Thank you, Art. Paul, how much of this is being directed by regional?
I don't believe any. Right at this point in time, it's a cooperation between Saguache and Rio Grande County. I believe that the business is on the Saguache side of the line. The place where the individuals are residing is on our side of the line. And that's where we often have a little difficulty in crossover in the Saguache area. So the businesses affected are on their side, and the homes affected at this point are on our side of the line related to
So
that.
if I hear you correctly, we've got a handle on it then.
We do have a handle on it, and I am working very closely with Saguache as well on
Okay.
this.
This really isn't a regional issue. This is a relationship between 2 counties.
Correct?
Thank you.
At this time, yes.
Okay. Other comments from the commissioners, questions?
I guess maybe I want to jump topics back to that Facebook post, and it was done by SLV Emergency. How are we, did we enter into an agreement to be a part of that group? How are we related to that group?
Trish, you can answer part of that question.
I mean, I can. I still don't know how we entered into that group whatsoever, but at least in the beginning, they were associated with our regional EOC. I do understand, and I think Art could probably explain this best, that there may or may not have been issues regarding who's paying them. So they were removed or left the EOC. I'm not sure under what agreement or why they are, how they are continuing to be the PIO for the regional EOC, but it definitely seems as though they still are very much involved.
We had our own PIO, and as I recall, that person resigned from that position. Did the SLV Emergency take up that role at that point?
No, change one. Ida has taken over the PIO position once Courtney stepped down. Courtney, that was Arthur, I believe. She had to get back to the sheriff's office and didn't have the time. SLV Emergency has always been part of this regional EOC. As far as payment, who opted in, who decided that, that is a public health / emergency manager regional EOC question to ask. I have no idea. We've never had it explained.
Okay. Paul, do you have comment on that?
I wasn't here for how it originally came about. I know it was formed related to some of the fires, like the South Fork fires and stuff we had back in the past, just to try to increase communication regionally. But that's all the background I really have on that group.
So you weren't involved in that process at all then?
I was not. No, that was before my time.
Okay, thank you. Art, what do you know about it?
Pretty much the same as Trish and Paul. That was started before my time. I do know that at one time the regional PIO was a person out of the South Fork Fire Department who it became an issue of payment, and so she resigned. And I know now that Kay Crowder is the PIO for the DOC. I don't know where payment's coming from or anything like that. I know she works under the guise of with the Alamosa group. I don't know her exact position per se. But as far as the emergency managers and things like that, as far as the input, what I was told by the other emergency managers is, again, it was started by or during the time of fires and other emergencies as a coordinated effort to regionally send out public information via social media. And that's basically all I know of it.
Okay. So we have no formal agreement with SLB Emergency or the DOC for them to represent or speak on our behalf.
Not that I am aware of.
Okay. And in this particular Facebook post, the politicized comment was a recommendation that people boycott businesses that were not enforcing the mask requirement, or the mask recommendation.
And that's basically, in a nutshell, what it said. And during our emergency managers meeting yesterday, everybody, that was the first I had heard of it. It was brought to my attention by the emergency manager from Mineral County, and it was not well received by any of us. And it is the consensus of the emergency managers that we have requested all ties to our titles be removed from that SLB emergency Facebook page.
Okay. Is there comments from the other commissioners?
I'm kind of the opinion that I would support removing Rio Grande County if that's what the kind of stuff they're going to talk about. That it's supposed to be for facts, not for editorializing.
Thank you. Trish, this is a technical thing. Would you resend me, if you can, that proposed organizational chart, that slideshow? It just disappeared from my computer, every file that I've looked at. If you could get that to me before we have the call at 1 o'clock.
Lindsay has asked for, a copy of the meeting, and just for the record for Mr. Rio Grande Seer, Justin, just to clarify, that Rio Grande County had not come to any agreement with SLV emergency. The taxpayers' money does not pay for it, at least in Rio Grande County. I can't speak for the other counties. And just to make sure that that was clarified, because there's a lot of conversation out there that commissioners specifically, have SLV emergency, putting this information out there, and our office has no input whatsoever, output to SLV. I just wanted to clarify that due to some of the media out there.
Thank you. So Trish, you will send me that slideshow?
Okay.
Thank you. Okay.
Commissioner?
Yes.
I am pulling in to meet with one of our partners. I have to jump off the call. Do you have anything else for me?
Not at this. I have nothing else. I haven't had a chance to read your update. I'll read it. If I have questions, I'll get a hold of you. Other commissioners?
Thank you.
They're good.
Good. Okay. Suzanne,
I'm good. Thank you.
Okay. Good enough. Okay. We've got 30 minutes before our next call. Is there any more under public health business? Hearing that, Paul, are you going to be on that call?
I was going to join in at least just to listen in and give input if I'm needed.
Okay. Thank you, Paul.
Yep.
Anything else under public health? If not, we have nothing listed under unfinished business. I'm going to hold off on Commissioner Administrator updates just for a second to talk about executive session. Do we need an executive session today?
We do. Under personnel.
Probably wouldn't be able to do that between now and our 1 o'clock call. I'm just thinking of the logistics. So with the concurrence of the commissioners, if we, after we adjourn this, or not adjourn, we'll adjourn this meeting for the purposes of participating in the SLV, whatever DOC call, whatever that thing is called. And then we can reconvene and then go into executive session after that. Does that work?
That's for me.
Me.
And I assume Ryan, I don't know what your schedule looks like, but this probably won't happen until around 2 o'clock.
And I won't be available after 2. I don't know if I'm needed for that. I don't have anything that's specific for the board that would need to be addressed in an executive session in terms of privileged communication or legal advice.
Okay, thank you. Then I'll go back up. Do we have unfinished business, Trish?
We do not.
Okay. Commissioner and Administrator updates. Do we have any?
I have one subject that was handed to me this morning also. I don't think it really requires a vote, more of a notice. You can tell me. So it is the time for the 4-H. And we received an email from Heather Tillman regarding her fair that she does with 4-H. They are going to be renting the McMullen building. In past years, as far as I can look back, we always donated that. I just wanted to confirm that we want to continue with that.
Yeah, so before we have a lot of discussion, I just want to say I definitely think we ought to just make that available to them.
And honestly, if we can get in writing that that's something we always want to do, then I don't even have to bring up these things for, like I said, as far back as I can see, we've always donated it.
Yeah.
I think we should donate it.
Is this a motion and action item, and do we have to pass a resolution forward on this?
Yeah, I think it probably would make sense to put that on the next agenda and then make a formal decision regarding what future action you want to take with respect to 4-H and that building. So maybe at your meeting on the 1st or the 8th or whatever you have scheduled.
Okay. Trish, can we put that on for the next meeting?
I can, and this brings up, you know, the few items that I think would really help us in the administration office for delegation, for items very similar to this. If we can think about that and maybe discuss it at a later time.
Okay, and Trish, would you be willing to give us your recommendations? Just write them down, bullet point, the areas
Sure.
of concern that you have. Thank you. Anything else, Trish, before? You got it?
No.
Okay, Gene, do you have any updates?
At our landfill meeting yesterday, everything looked pretty good on paper. Went through our audit okay. So that was about my biggest update for this week.
Thank you.
We did work on census a little bit. It's winding down, and they're sending out some last-minute text messages to the communities that they haven't been able to get to very easily with COVID going on. So
Great, thanks. Suzanne?
Pretty much all of my boards are either taking a hiatus or are actively involved with COVID, so they're not having meetings.
Thank you. One thing I have has to do with railroad. Ryan and I participated in a conference call bankruptcy petitioners the other day. There are things happening that don't affect us directly at this point, other than the bankruptcy trustee will maybe generating money by selling off portions of assets of the Iowa Pacific Empire, and that there's nothing, while I think the term was the irons are hot, there's nothing right now, say July 1st or something, that we have to be concerned about. Ryan, your thoughts on this?
I agree with that. I let the attorneys on the line know that I was going to be reaching out to the attorneys for Cornelius and Alamosa, and then John also suggested that I reach out to the attorney for Huerfano County to try to make sure that we can galvanize support from their respective boards. I think the idea is that we would like to have a committee of creditors so that the public interest for the San Luis Valley and the affected regions are have a voice and are given deference in the bankruptcy proceedings. So I'm going to be reaching out to them, relaying the contents of that meeting that we had. I think the overall tone of that meeting was fairly optimistic. And so I think John and Pete and Mike have done a lot for the counties, including Rio Grande County, in terms of ensuring that we get something out of this bankruptcy, when I will be the first to confess that for a long time, I didn't see that coming. And so it's not a done deal, and it's far from that. But I think, like I said before, I'm more optimistic that the counties will actually benefit from this situation. So thank you, John.
Thank you, Ryan. So that's it for me on railroad. Does anybody else have anything? Then can we adjourn? Thank you, Gene.
I just want to tell you, I'm sorry, I just want to tell you thanks for the work on the railroad too. I know that sometimes it went unsaid by a lot of people, but I know you've worked very hard on that to keep the county's best interest in place for it.
Okay. Well, do me a favor, and when you talk to the press, tell them that so we can get some of the hate mail on the other issues off my back. I'm gonna pull some arrows out. So
good luck.
Thank you.
I still cringe when you talk to me about the railroad, but
yeah, it's a cringe-worthy event, but you've got to admit it's interesting.
No, it is. Forward progress.
All right. Okay, is there anything else before we adjourn so we can then participate in the 1 o'clock call?
I'm good.
Good.
I don't have anything.
Well, I'm just motion to adjourn. We'll just adjourn, and then we will reconvene after that call for the executive session.
So moved.
Okay, Gene, say second, please.
Second.
Motion second. I know there are no objections. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everybody, for being on. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.